When I was a child, my grandfather explained to me that the northern lights were caused by light shimmering off Arctic ice. The scientific explanation is that they are caused by material thrown off by the sun, colliding with the atmosphere of the Earth. And when it comes to the moon, I was always captivated by the fact that we can only see one side of it from Earth. The other side has only been visited and photographed from spacecraft. But the moon, like the northern lights, has a complex relationship with the Earth, as does the universe. Science continues to discover more about that astounding interconnectedness. An interconnectedness that affects the tides, the weather, the seasons, every aspect of life we take for granted, right down to the blood in our veins. The forces of nature, no matter how seemingly random, from storm clouds and lightning to blowing snow and high winds, ultimately determine our well-being. All of nature's forces gift the surface of the Earth with subtle energy. All we have to do is touch it and become truly alive.
Welcome to the Power of Natural Healing with Howard Strauss.
We have Clint Ober. Now, Clint Ober started out his career riding on the rise in popularity of cable television, but he wasn't very happy. And from that dissatisfaction, from that unhappiness with his personal achievement and his goals and his what he felt like he was doing for the world, he has made one of the most significant health discoveries of all time.
Pretty far-fetched, I thought, but something to consider while dealing with the cold reality of the day.
35 below wind chill. Does the sink work?
20 below zero, sitting overnight. Couldn't use this. on here.
But the more I thought about that internet show with its elevated message, perhaps there was some truth to it. Greatest health discovery ever? Okay. When you're in physical pain like I was, you tend to look closer at your options for some kind of relief. This was a winter like no other. 44 feet of snow fell in total.
There's a reason why I feel crappy today yet. Hello! Can you help me carry some pieces of firewood?
The workload was daunting and unrelenting. My back muscles kept me in agony. My frozen hands stayed numb.
Here's a fence. It's an 8-foot-high fence. But as you can see,
I take care of orphaned wildlife. Their lives fared much better in the brutal season compared to their wild counterparts. You might have wondered what that greatest health discovery pronouncement made on that internet show was. It is called earthing, which refers to the recent uncovering of the fact that major health benefits result from contact with the Earth's energy field by walking barefoot. Wearing conductive footwear, such as leather, also works. But because I was desperate, I went for the whole treatment from head to toe, regardless of the temperature. After about 20 minutes of lying naked on the bare earth in below freezing temperatures, a wave of calm had come over me, and I felt warm and tingly. The next morning, something was missing. It was the pain in my back, and both of my hands were no longer numb. This was crazy. How could this have occurred? Was it my imagination? Did I simply tell myself the pain would go away if I touched the earth, and by doing so it would? I decided to try a different method. Of course, I didn't want to stay connected to the earth by lying outside in the cold. Since earthing or grounding is all about soaking up the earth's free electrons, all I needed to do was stick a grounding rod into the earth and bring the energy right into the cabin. And while I was at it, why not start an experiment to see if this magic works on other living things? And so I also cut 2 sprigs off a cottonwood sapling, grounding one and not the other, to see if it would influence the sprouting of the buds. This, I thought, would be the litmus test. But hey, why stomp with cottonwood twigs? It was almost Valentine's Day, and my helper Rocky delivered ideal additional specimens for my experiment.
thank you.
I put the first batch of lilies in the new workshop edition, which were not grounded to the earth, and even added the stuff that comes with store-bought flowers to give them a longer shelf life. The other batch for the grounding experiment. But the next morning, after sleeping grounded, something else was happening. I noticed I wasn't grinding my teeth in my sleep anymore either. Things started coming into focus rapidly after that. The cottonwood sprig that was in the grounded vase sprouted before the other one. And then the verdict was in between the grounded and ungrounded lilies. Guess which lily kept its petals the longest? The grounded lily, of course. All the ungrounded lilies in the new workshop edition had long been dead. It is a moment like this that you just want to jump on your snow machine and get to the first person you can think of who is suffering, who might really take you seriously. That person was my associate Mario Benassi. And then my helper Rocky caught an internet discourse between 2 celebrity doctors about this earthing discovery.
I got to see, I think a lot of folks are going to see, this is where Dr. Mercola, he fell off the wagon on this one. What? Who's doing this? And who gave this idea? Well, it's because it's not simply walking barefoot. It's the devil's in the detail. It's walking barefoot on the earth. And the earth is a massive source of free electrons. And when you do that, these electrons go into your body. So my mother-in-law has been torturing me about this. She's been talking to me about walking barefoot outside, which I thought was just a scam to get me out of the house.
Meantime, my associate Mario had some news.
I didn't really think it was true. Like, I didn't want to believe it at first. But it's the truth. He hasn't been snoring for the last 3 nights.
Now I don't hear him snore at all.
After an initial email, Clint Ober, the man who discovered grounding or earthing for modern man, contacted me. I explained to him how many people I knew were suffering in our community. He responded with this box. From then on, all I had to do was disseminate information and put together resources to anyone I knew that would benefit.
Word's getting out. Tim, are you there? Now you're in pain, right?
I am.
You got what's the matter?
Ruptured disc.
So you're in always pain.
Always.
Take this. Oh, you're here. So I just bumped into you.
Local business owners took this seriously. My reputation and hunch about grounding was now open to public scrutiny. Either this was going to change the community of Haines, Alaska, or I'd be the laughingstock of the town. Alaskans, it seems, are skeptical by nature and quite opinionated to boot.
Show me a better way and I'll do better.
Saying, Steve, that you should just take this thing and run with it and get it out to the public as fast as possible, to as many people as possible.
It's a concept I hadn't considered. So whether it makes sense or not, who's to say?
But I did crawl underneath the house and get naked and lay on the earth for about 20 minutes. And I felt better.
Why would the local doctor be so underwhelmed by this?
Uh-oh. Something happened here.
Camera on, and I'll tell you how dang good I feel without any back problems whatsoever.
Really? Has your back gotten better?
I have absolutely no pain in my back whatsoever.
And how long have you had this back pain prior to meeting on this earthing thing?
20 years. Day to day was a struggle.
My goodness.
Every day was a struggle to get through.
Oh, we got it in the truck. Well, the wolf will like that.
Almost everyone was being transformed, some literally overnight. So I placed calls with people at NASA for support in making this film.
Hey, Steve Cosell, try to not get involved in any way with things that I don't understand or don't, really know what to think about them. So I just can't do it. I hope that this turns out to be a breakthrough. Good luck to you, Steve.
I got a message from the astronaut. He turned me down. He said it's too crazy. What do you think? Should I give up? No. Why? Why? Nobody's gonna believe this.
Believe what?
Believe that this works.
Well, he's not the only person in the world.
Well, he's the man to walk on the moon. He's pretty important.
So? Just because he turned you down doesn't mean that other people won't believe in it.
Nobody believes in this stuff unless you get a famous person to talk to and at least give their opinion, don't you think?
No. It's the everyday Joe that's going to need this more than the guys that's got millions of dollars.
I've been a filmmaker for 30 years, mainly for the likes of National Geographic. If there ever was a film that I needed to make about nature, this one was it. We started to do more research and met earthing advocates, including Clint Ober himself.
Actually, I'll say, is laying on the earth. Just laying down on the earth. You don't have to be naked. You're touching the earth. If you can take your shoes off, that's great. It's like no amount of Advil or Motrin or Aleve can do the anti-inflammatory power that the earth can.
I'm using part of my parka here so we can see you. I don't know if it's my coat sliding down.
No, it's just the connections, just barely there.
Okay, barely there. All right. If a raven flies by and sits on a branch on the hemlock right here, you're gonna lose you.
Our first Skype meeting with earthing discoverer Clint Ober and assistant Dr. Christie resulted in another shipment of boxes of information and resources to continue to ground our hometown. The deeper question needs to be asked.
If there is a message at all about earthing, it really is. It's not about bed pads and wires and all that kind of stuff. It's more about our connection with nature, with the planet, with the universe, You know, we invented plastics in the 57, I think, DuPont, and it started entering the market in the 60s. The first thing we did with plastics is we put them on the soles of our shoes.
It always amazes me how much insight and wisdom can be deciphered from observing nature. This wolf I live with, named Isis, was also raised with the help of my veterinarian, Dr. Vic Walker. Until this moment, Dr. Walker had no knowledge of what was happening regarding earthing and my involvement with it.
They got powerful jaws, don't they? They're barefoot, essentially. You're my veterinary, from the sanctioned by the state of Alaska to look over the animals here and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You love this wolf?
Oh, yes.
At this moment, Dr. Walker revealed the chronic pain and stress his wife was currently going through.
So she deals with inflammation and pain.
Mm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Give her this.
What's this, Steve?
Not a day went by that I wasn't amazed with reports from people in our town. As hints of spring began to become evident, I kept a close eye on the snow lines for the first opportunity to become emancipated from footwear. With the longer days and warm winds, one of the family decided to suddenly wake up after months of hibernation. Her name is Kitty, a 5-year-old grizzly bear, orphaned as a cub and given to me by the state of Alaska to take care of for the rest of her life. Here's another creature, gifted with the extension of the senses we seem to have lost or never attained, living by voices we shall never hear. The awakening of the bear also awakened something in me, something that said how beautiful the natural cycle of life is, how precise rhythmic patterns of the earth work, and how the hum of the earth is in sync with the moon and the forces beyond that. How beautiful it all is. And this is where this film takes another turn. While tossing frozen salmon out of the freezer for the bear, I realized that my assistant was right. The astronaut that turned down involvement on this movie project was not the only human to set foot on the lunar surface. 12 of them did. And now, 2 were suddenly willing to contribute their time to this movie. We were set to meet on a Florida beach. By the time I arrived with the film crew in Cape Canaveral, Florida, it all became dreamlike. It was here where I was going to meet Laura Conover, a medical doctor who was going to help with these interviews.
There's 3 rooms under Richard Smith.
Richard Smith, would you like a grounded or non-grounded room?
What?
Smoking or non-smoking?
Non-smoking.
The film crew couldn't resist letting the hotel receptionist in on the subject matter of this documentary. But it did plant a seed of an idea in my mind to share with a motel owner back in Alaska. A far cry from my first earthing experience, there was a very comfortable way for civilized people to receive the same earth energy in the form of a conductive bedsheet.
Life's an adventure. So I went out.
But who do I have to thank for this chance introduction? None other than our beloved rooster, Squawky. Laura was about to help me meet 2 people with a unique perspective about the earth.
I was going to say, Dr. Mitchell, I know that you experienced a really intimate moment where you felt interconnected with everything,
Yes.
even in space.
Okay.
There was no script for this shoot, and of course none of this was staged. I had my film crew from National Geographic, Laura and her family, and a strong desire to document different perspectives about the Earth, its healing power, and the interconnectedness of all life therein.
And I remember I watched you describe a moment where this just hit you, it just washed over you. You had this moment where you felt interconnected to not just the Earth, but the stars, everything.
That's exactly experiencing that particular phenomena. I didn't know what to call it at that point.
Right.
Cultures are rooted in this type of unity experience. It says everything's all interconnected.
Honor. Yeah, gift for you.
After listening to what Dr. Mitchell shared, and before we ran out of time, I had one chance to give him the same tools for connecting to the Earth, just like everyone back home.
1-1.
was now speaking with Charlie Duke, the 10th man to walk on the moon on Apollo 16, and the director in Houston to guide Apollo 11 and Neil Armstrong to become the first man to walk on the lunar surface.
APA at a descent. Mode control, both auto descent engine command override. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Okay, they want to know, how excited were you when you put your first footstep on the moon?
Well, I was like a little kid.
Charlie Duke also did this interview barefoot. He too understood that the ground beneath our feet is a natural treatment table for what ails us. He saw it all as intelligent design.
Now I look back on my adventure, and there's a psalm that says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the works of His hand." And it is not an accident, it's not a chance, it's just an orderly universe that we see, and the planets in their courses, and the stars, and all of the physical laws that are so repeatable over and over and over again. And I see God's hand in that.
Laura had a deep knowledge of how grounding works. She had no reservations in inviting me back to her home in Charleston, South Carolina, to explain all this. It was in Dr. Conover's home that I could see her vision and understanding about how earthing works and what it can do for humanity. But then she didn't stop there. It seemed there was this inner drive to suggest this comprehensive healing modality through her many painted creations. So profound, yet so simple, that even a preschooler could comprehend. Dr. Conover was very much aware of the scientific research conducted over the past 15 years on earthing. She believes the future of healthcare will be vastly different for her children because of it. Before I left, she agreed to do more research on earthing with her own patients. Arriving home, I was relieved that my assistant Rocky Seward had kept everyone happy. In my hometown, there continued to be profound and life-impacting reports. At the Eagle Foundation, for example, there was Dave Ulrud, who had been a paraplegic for 30 years, in a state of unimaginable suffering, barely able to twitch his toes. Until now. He had only been grounded a month.
Thanks for the moose branches.
You're welcome.
What are you going to help me, what's that?
That's a grounding thing for lady. She give it back because she can't get too well or she'll lose her disability. It's okay?
But then there was Rocky himself, a man who lives a hard life and sort of is homeless, who sleeps in his truck each night, until I invited him to stay with me in the cabin. There was no way I would ever get a good night's sleep with that type of situation happening on the couch, 4 feet away from my bed. The next night, Mr. Seward agreed to allow me to hook him up to the earth in an experiment. He had nothing to lose, really, since he'd never gotten a true night's sleep anyway, due to waking up choking and with a headache and more. You guessed it. He never snored again. associate Mario rendezvoused with me at a street corner in Vancouver to meet this host. His name is Dr. David Suzuki. But who is he really?
He's probably one of the most well-known scientists of our age. He's a national hero in Canada, and he's probably one of the most eminent ecologists that people recognize.
You think I should tuck my shirt in?
Yeah, maybe.
Dr. Suzuki.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you. I've been following you since I was a little kid.
Okay. Where are you now?
Well, live in Alaska.
In Alaska?
Outside of Haines, Alaska.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is Mario Benassi. He's
Hi.
an associate of mine. We used to shoot for PBS and all these different things, nature shows. But between the two of us, I don't think we've ever been so tongue-tied to meet.
Come on. Come on, let's go.
Okay. Okay, you lead the way.
Yeah, okay. So you haven't visited this place?
I have never been here.
I explained to Dr. Suzuki how our town was benefiting from earthing and asked if he thought reconnecting to the Earth's energy field would be beneficial.
Absolutely. We need to be connected with the Earth, which gave us birth. The moment I was born, I needed a breath of air, as did everyone else. And from that time to the last breath we take before we die, we need air 15 to 40 times a minute. That's nature, man. We take air into our bodies, we fuse with it, and pump it through our systems. We are air. We are water. 70% of my body is water, for heaven's sakes, and we leak it all the time through our skin and our eyes and our nose and our crotch, and we lose water, and we have to keep topping up. That water comes from all over the world. We are a part of nature. That's what we are. But we think that we've grown so smart and that we can actually pump nature up and get it to yield even more. Cut the trees down, we'll genetically modify and genetically alter trees so they grow faster. Of course, the quality of the wood is crap, but we think that we can grow trees as if they're corn or tomato plants, which is absurd, of course. We have now become the most numerous mammal on the planet, but we're not like wildebeest or mice or caribou. We are endowed with huge amounts of technology, a consumptive appetite that is insatiable, and we are trashing the planet as a result. And we're trashing our home. It's our home.
We were fortunate enough on this journey to meet historian Freddie Silva, who clearly understood the Earth's energy fields from the perspective of the intuitions of ancient people.
What is it that you were doing that brought you out to the west coast here of Canada?
I sort of work with ancient systems of knowledge. I had to look at and research how the ancestors worked and built temples around the world, look at the ways in which they develop common attitudes to developing consciousness, and then find that there are commonalities between these points of view that are shared by different cultures around the world.
Mr. Silva pointed out that earthing is not a new discovery, just a rediscovery of what the ancients already knew would help them to heal. I was now literally connected to the Earth almost 24/7. The remarkable way I was being affected made me ponder that most people in modern societies are almost never in direct contact with the Earth's surface. No wonder so many people walk around fat, sick, and nearly dead. Sometimes nothing prepares us for the devastating stress and emotional upheavals that can lay claim to your life. The first thing grounding does is calm the nervous system. It soothes the left side of the brain and synchronizes the right and left brain. Where I found pain relief was to do what the ancients did. Immerse myself unclothed into the earth. It's like throwing a bucket of water on a fire as opposed to using just a cup. More exposed skin allows the earth electrons to flow into one with much more volume and intensity. An event was taking place now. It involved grounding 1,000 people all at the same time during a 70-minute presentation organized by Clint Ober, the discoverer of earthing for modern man. First, there was Carol Alt, who spoke about body care, and with that comes the realization for millions of women that earthing is the holy grail for beauty care. But the main event was Dr. Christie, who upon taking center stage would instruct everyone to begin grounding themselves during her talk.
Yes.
As Clint Ober observed this group, he looked confident that it wouldn't take long for grounding to affect everyone in the room.
We're gonna have a good time.
I was nowhere near prepared for the number of people that were affected by being grounded that came back and wanted to talk to me. How do you interview almost 1,000 people?
It's such a simple and so profound and powerful concept. And it's right there beneath our feet. This is what just blows me away. I've been writing about health for 35 years.
I got a call from the state of Alaska, another orphaned animal, this time a baby moose. Because she was likely a mere 48 hours old, I had to keep her safe from hungry wild grizzlies, and so I put her in a bear-proof horse trailer with the doors shut temporarily. I named her Karen. Because the horse trailer kept Karen ungrounded, I devised a way to reconnect this moose calf to the earth with a grounding pad. She instinctively knew where to lie down, whether it was concealed or not. The next step was an exercise in reality having to do with true nutrition. This moose primarily needed raw milk with all the live enzymes. If it was pasteurized, she would likely die. Yet, I'm amazed that people are told there is no difference at the grocery store. The flow of people to my porch wanting to be grounded never let up, and word continued to spread. By the time the daisies were in bloom, I was elated with the return of my son Garrett from his work down south. Garrett and his 19-year-old girlfriend, Esther, were somewhat aware of earthing, but wanted to learn more. I would show them. It was just a matter of time. The plants themselves had something to say about earthing. More and more people in our town wanted to be grounded. It was overwhelming. Garrett and Esther were now part of the team. I wanted to make an impression on these two kids and collected as many plants as I had room for to replicate and verify. I just laid back and watched. If grounding is all a placebo effect in humans, then the results with plants would be pretty black and white, I thought. Vegetation can't lie. Inspired by the moose calf's natural connection to the earth, I found myself going barefoot most of the time too. I felt like a kid again. As time passed, my veterinarian, Dr. Walker, returned with his family. By now, even he had experienced what earthing had rendered. By this time in town, my assistant Rocky Seward was called to help replace a sign. An official declaration to our entire community and beyond. The first motel in the nation to offer overnight accommodations, grounded. On the other side of the continent, Dr. Laura Conover also had studies underway. Her interviews with the Apollo astronauts gave her inspiration. They too were running trials with plants.
Y'all come on back now.
While simultaneously conducting earthing trials with patients.
Tell me how the study went for you.
The main reason I wanted to do this was
because anytime you say, oh, walk outside in your bare feet and lose weight, that would be awesome.
I have loved the study. I noticed that I was sleeping better. I had a deeper sleep.
And now long term, I don't have pain at all anymore.
I can't say enough how much of a difference this has made in my life.
Laura's children took these patient results in like they were multiple miracles. And the lab results stunned everyone. Then renowned cardiologist Dr. Stephen Sinatra heard of the study.
Well, never before in a history of humankind do we have to ground.
Laura Conover continued to email all of us, particularly my son Garrett and his girlfriend Esther. It caused these kids to question everything from the food we eat to the drugs people take to what they were taught in science class in high school, and above all, why we all wear rubber-soled shoes. Grounding soon caught the attention of outsiders, like a film crew that were working on an episode for National Geographic. The show's host took a particular interest in what happens to plants. I pointed out clinical case studies online with the Geographic team of the seemingly miraculous disappearance of chronic inflammation in patients, verified by thermography, which distinctly depicts reduction in inflammation through color temperatures. As for Garrett and Esther, it was time to whet their appetites. This phenomena is bigger than all of us, beyond the greatest health discovery ever. It may encompass much, much more. The curiosity of these two kids now led them on a quest, just like me. I agreed to support their research, wherever that might take them. Garrett and Esther learned that the ancients had a clear comprehension of the Earth's subtle electrical fields and the planet's negative charge. Gothic cathedrals were oftentimes built exactly upon energy hotspots. All of these sites, whether conical mounds or stone circles, were built with impressive precision, rivaling any technology we possess today. The architectural design that was implemented in building Gothic cathedrals was carefully planned out with a purpose behind it all. It was to harness and channel subtle Earth energy directly down corridors and spaces. In 2008, when NASA announced that the Earth is linked to the Sun by a network of magnetic portals, they essentially validated the ancient temple builders who sourced these very flux events on the land and their connection beyond our terrestrial sphere. Then I was determined to meet someone who could infuse insight, answers, and hope. John Stuart Reed brought me to an ancient stone circle site called Long Meg and Her Daughters, which is considered one of the largest stone circles in the UK next to Stonehenge. It is in this cow pasture where John and I began some analysis of the breadth and width of these individual stones and their formational link to the Earth's energy. These stones, put here thousands of years ago along with their inscriptions, have weathered the test of time. What were these ancient secrets? I was about to find out. Experiments are conducted inside a special room called the Faraday cage. It is in this environment where studies take place with instruments such as the Simoscope, which uses a few drops of water to manifest frequencies.
It's an audio oscillator, and we're going to set it to the Schumann cavity resonance of 7.83 hertz.
The frequency of the Earth. It has never been seen before like this. This heartbeat occurs in the spherical cavity between the surface of the Earth and the ionosphere.
Whoa.
It's almost as if the universe is trying to tell us something, perhaps synchronicity. The brains of all creatures, including humans, are tuned to this frequency and this pattern, simply with water and light. The frequency of the Earth made visible for the first time ever, yet the same design carved on rocks thousands of years earlier. The world's top mathematicians are now extrapolating mathematical equations from this sacred geometry. Then I heard about a teenage girl named Ray Heim who was running barefoot coast to coast. I wanted to cheer her on. If successful, she would become the youngest and only female who ever ran across America, not to mention doing it barefoot. The odds were against her. She was running to raise awareness of children who live in poverty. Because of the oppressive heat and drought conditions Ray was running through, I thought the best place to meet would be where there was both shade and free energy. Ray had no idea why I chose a sunflower field to meet in. She was running on asphalt most of the time, which is non-conductive, and since the soil was so parched, it was also non-conductive. However, Ray could receive earth energy if all she did was touch one thing. The roots of the sunflower went deep into the earth, and so the moist stem was essentially a grounding rod, giving Ray Earth's power. Now aware of this secret, Ray was gifted with an edge. Back home in Alaska, earthing was now the talk of the town, and for many who didn't want to go barefoot for various reasons, there was a solution. By drilling holes in shoes and sandals and inserting a conductive plug, the Earth's energy could go back up into the foot, next best thing to barefoot. And then a lady from New York heard about what was happening in our town. She knew that not everyone would want to wear grounded sandals. She had options. Grounded shoes.
They're wonderful. I'm kind of the kind that thinks that it's not going to work.
No, I think the science is really indisputable about the benefits. So these are 7.
There are very good reasons to think that this may very well be the most important health discovery ever, and it's something you all need to know about. Electrostatics is a branch of physics, and it teaches us that when two conductive objects make contact, if they have different electrical potential, they equalize virtually instantaneously. You may know that penicillin was a revolution in medicine. This is a revolution in healthcare that I think transcends penicillin.
Dr. James Oshman studied at the Marine Biological Laboratory under Nobel Prize winner Albert Szent-Györgyi, the biochemist who did research of electronic biology in the 80s. Dr. James Oshman responded to all the questions that Esther and Garrett sent him. He emailed information and illustrations which quantified and verified the scientific research, including the double-blind placebo studies and the clinical trials that were conducted over a period of 15 years. How beautiful to know, and yet how tragic to realize that much of humanity has never heard of grounding. Because of profound effects that earthing has on women of all ages, Dr. Laura Conover would email Esther and Garrett pictures she painted that spoke in subtle detail of this fact. Children who practice earthing that have been studied have been shown to have profound reductions in physical and emotional issues. One study of 28 parents of autistic children found a dramatic change in behavior and communication skills after grounding the children only 2 months. And then I had an opportunity to visit my parents in Minnesota. And both of my parents had health issues that recently were miraculously wiped away by earthing. If earthing worked for them, it was a strategy that would know no boundaries of age, race, color, or creed or circumstance. At the urging of my parents, I flew to nearby Chicago, where there was another advocate of earthing, who is known to millions of people around the world. This is a doctor who does not accept conventional medicine at face value, and who successfully shines a light on true healing and environmental sustainability. Not surprisingly, living grounded is something this man had been doing for the past 8 years.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? It is.
His name is Dr. Joseph Mercola, the physician that we had seen in February on a show discussing grounding with Dr. Oz.
Do you go barefoot a lot?
Most of the time,
Yeah.
except when I'm driving or have to do a professional video shoot.
My cab driver looked like he already knew about this ancient wisdom.
I'm going to listen to some of Mercola's comments here again, okay? Do you want to hear them too? Okay.
There's a famous German philosopher, his name is Arthur Schopenhauer, and he had a comment about truth, which is really quite amazing, I think most appropriate to when we're considering a topic like grounding. And his statement was, it is ridiculed, then it becomes violently opposed, and then finally it becomes widely accepted as self-evident.
What do you think about Dr. Mercola's viewpoints on walking barefoot?
My grandparents say almost same things. Walking on the grass is very healthy, especially your heart.
In this journey, if that's what you could call it, I now noticed within myself a renewed sensitivity about the subtle details of nature, the flow of the seasons, the dance of life. And when it came to personal emotions about the affairs of the heart, a stronger belief in the ultimate power of love and the value of patience and understanding and the ability to operate on faith emerged. Everyone around me seemed happier. Now I could see patterns never noticed before, from the basic designs of a beehive to the arrangement of leaves and seeds of a sunflower to the mathematical consistencies of the design of everything. Nothing was random.
It's more about our connection with nature, with the planet, with the universe. Cultures are rooted in this type of unity experience. It says everything's all interconnected.
It is not an accident. It's not a chance. It's just an orderly universe.
An orderly universe, all right, even within our bodies. To many people, Earth energy remains abstract. But what if I could document the rate at which red blood cells travel after a subject is grounded for a mere 2 hours? It's a scientific visual. It's a fact that blood thins significantly when one is grounded. Thus, earthing becomes a major factor in battling heart disease. As I flipped the switch for the blood to be influenced by a controlled DC electric field, we could now see the difference of blood velocity before and after 2 hours of earthing. As you can see, under controlled conditions of the DC current, the blood cell velocity is unequivocal before and after earthing for 2 hours. But for many other women of Haines that gathered in our workshop, the future is indeed bright.
I grew up in Angoon, Alaska, and in Angoon, we as a village, as a culture, believe that we have to be good to the earth and respect the earth, most importantly, so that the earth will be good to us.
The first 5 months of my pregnancy with Maya, I was extremely sick, and then I was introduced to this grounding.
As for the people in the town of Haines,
I was born with spinal bifida, And Rocky came up here and was telling me about this grounding thing. And he went ahead and gave me a couple of the patches, and I put them on my feet, and I tell you what, I just started sleeping better at night. I've hurt my shoulders probably 7 years ago. I've torn both of my rotator cuffs.
And now it's different?
And now it's different. I used to not be able to just reach up. I used to have to go like this and just kind of gingerly put my arm up, and I can...
And so you've gotten lots of comments about this earthing room here at your motel, right?
Yes, indeed.
And some people, what happens to them? Do they call you again, want to come here?
Sure, yeah, they'll call us back, and if they're traveling through the community again, they come back and will stay in our motel so that they can access this room again.
What are they feeling when they stay here?
Relief from back pain, relief from arthritis-type pain, just a good, comfortable sleep, those kinds of things.
Here, I'm going to give you this journal. We have to start keeping records of this.
You remember the skeptical doctor in Haines who thought that earthing was anecdotal? 12 months later, he's more perplexed than ever about what's happening in town. And now, an official dinner was being planned for some very special guests. I met up with these guests at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. It was Dr. Christie and astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell. But by the time we landed in Juneau, Alaska, a storm was brewing and all flights to our hometown were canceled. The only other alternative to get home was a sketchy ferry ride. No amount of cold and snow or storms could cancel this event. There was one slight last-minute problem, however. Remember the Eagle's Nest Motel, first in the nation to offer an earthing room? Well, they were sold out. No vacancy. No room for Edgar and Dr. Christie and Jason, her assistant, to stay. Too many people had come to town to meet Edgar and Christie. The only other option was my place. I was not prepared for that. When Dr. Mitchell asked, "Is there plumbing in there?" as a joke, well, no, there really wasn't. All the pipes were frozen. Ironically, it all started to feel familiar. I really was home again.
We have seen facilities now being created for the greatest and most complex exploration in man's history. We have felt the ground shake and the air shattered by the testing of a Saturn C-1 booster rocket, many times as powerful as the Atlas which launched John Glenn, generating power equivalents to 10,000 automobiles with their accelerator on the floor.
It wasn't long before everyone discovered that we had more in common than we could have realized.
So I'll show you. This is the sunflower experiment that we're doing with Gary Schwartz.
Is this a wire that's connecting them?
Yeah, it's a wire and then there's a mesh. And it becomes really distinct over time. This poor little sunflower that's not connected starts to wither and wilt. Mm-hmm. And the one that's connected to the earth is still vibrant and strong. It seems to me when I look at this that the earth itself has this energy to give every living creature.
Well, it certainly would suggest that. Certainly would suggest that.
Yeah.
As the Atlas which launched John Glenn.
And so now we are at the moment of the hour. It's such a privilege to be able to introduce to you Apollo 14 astronaut, Dr. Edgar Mitchell.
There is a saying in one of the traditions that I'm familiar with that says, "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me." It has been what I have worked for since I came back from the moon, to help we as humans learn to live with each other and for each other, and to create for ourselves and our planet and our progeny a sustainable civilization. And we are not there yet. We've got a lot of work to do, but we can do it. And I've devoted my life to it because the experience that I had coming back from the moon had been shared by most astronauts. Now, it may not be exactly described in the way I describe it, but nevertheless, it's what's called the overview effect of seeing this magnificent little planet that we have in the backdrop of the universe of stars and galaxies and galactic clusters, and recognizing how immense this universe is, and we're just a small part of it. And we have an important part to play in our civilization and in our future, because either we're going to make it together or we're not going to make it at all.
As heartwarming as Edgar's visit was to this community, I had to force myself to turn the page and approach my son Garrett and his girlfriend Esther with a different perspective, which would challenge and ridicule everything they were experiencing. I found and invited a person who had something to say and would do so in a public venue. He was no friend of what all the healed people of this town embraced as truth. He didn't care how many would be listening.
Absolutely, the more the merrier. Welcome to all.
We understand that you've created a website called Skeptoid.com, and you've written an article about earthing, citing Dr. Mercola's opinions about earthing and your own.
Mostly correct, yes. That blog was written by one of my blog authors, not by me.
Okay, and do you feel that earthing can be beneficial to healing and reducing inflammation?
The short answer is no. I'm not aware of any reason why there might be anything beneficial connected with this. Basically, as far as I can tell you, what I know of earthing is that one has a huge number of made-up New Age claims. I can't say I've heard anyone say they have a health benefit.
I walked 30 feet today.
What are the implications of all of this? Will it become an unstoppable force for the benefit of everyone? If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. So, in the end, I remembered the others over this past 11 months that helped with this film and how they were affected.
The Earth knew what the patients needed.
So y'all in town visiting?
You know, we're here to shoot this movie and basically tell the world about the medicinal benefits, which are absolutely huge.
As for me, I don't know what the future holds, but whatever happens, I'll certainly have memories. For each of us eventually, whether we're ready or not, someday it will come to an end. There will be no more sunrises, no more minutes, hours, or days. All the things you collected, whether treasured or forgotten, will pass to someone else. Your wealth, fame, and temporal power will shrivel to irrelevance. It won't matter whether you are beautiful or brilliant, rich or poor, famous or anonymous, or thought to be those things. What will matter is not what we got, but what we gave. Not what we bought, but what we built. For those you loved. And if there is love, there is a reason to hope. I think now I'm ready for winter.